We're going to study the part of the Haggadah that talks about the Maisa, the incident. So this incident, Maisa b'Rabbi Eliezer, this incident is clearly coming, or most obviously seems to be coming, as a continuation, of what happened in the previous paragraph. The previous paragraph said, "Does everybody have Haggadah?" And Shepsel, I got the matzah without you this year, but I still have for you to give you. Well, you didn't drive me to Israel. No, the previous incident says, even if you're wise, navonim, tzaddikim, it's a mitzvah to tell about the Exodus story. And then we go into, and whoever tells about the story is praised. So now we go to the point of this story. So it says, Maisa b'Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Tarfon. And they have these five great rabbis, and Shayim Mesubin, that they were having a meal on the night of Pesach. And when they were having this Haggadah, they were having this party, Benei Brak. They were eating it, they were gathering in Benei Brak. Yimesaprim b'Yetzias Mitzrayim. They were telling the Exodus story the entire night, until their students came along, and they said to them, the time has come to recite the Shema of the Shachris. Now, what do you mean the time has come to recite the Shema of the Shachris? Basically, the Abarbanel says that it was, what time of day was it? It was sunrise. And the ideal was to recite the Shema at that time. And so therefore, this goes to the idea of also that we just said, we did this big celebration at Nate's, of celebrating, of making sure that the first moment of prayer, first moment that we could pray, we pray, which is sunrise. It's for the Amidah, so the Shema, some say the Shema should be at sunrise. But the students came along and told them. Oh, so that's a classic question. How did they not know? How did they not know? So you jumped ahead. We'll come back to that. But the reason why they didn't know was because there's two reasons why they didn't know. So first, the most obvious reason is that because they were so engaged in the story, they lost track. They were so engaged in the story that they lost track of what's going on. That's one explanation. Meaning to say, and you could say it on a deeply symbolic level, they were so much involved in telling the story that they were overwhelmed by the light of the Shekhinah, and they didn't see any darkness. And they couldn't see any distinctions in the world because they were just in the present. It was like all light. So their students had to remind them to tell the sunrise. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that that it's possible that they were hiding. I mean, that's like one classic answer, that they weren't allowed to be studying Torah at the time of the Hadrianic persecutions. And so they were hiding in, let's say, a cave. They would have no idea what's going on. That's another very common explanation. I have a different theory. My theory is as follows. My theory is that this story has to be read symbolically. And the way we read it is that they were sitting there in Benei Brak, and they were telling the Exodus story all night long. The night symbolizes the darkness. And they were in the middle of the Hadrianic persecution. And they were saying how dark it was in this world. And they were saying that they are throwing themselves and talking about the struggles of their current situation. And the students came along and said, it's the time of sunrise, the time of sunrise, the time of redemption is here. It's the time that we will be redeemed. And maybe this is a reference almost to the Bar Kokhba rebellion, which represented the redemption. The Rambam says that Rabbi Akiva thought that Bar Kokhba was the general, was the Mashiach. Rabbi Akiva thought that. He thought that he was going to be leading them off into the redemption. And so maybe the students were coming along and saying, our rabbis, it's the time of redemption. Stop talking about the Exodus and the darkness. We're now talking about the redemptive moment of the Mashiach has arrived. So that's the way I read that story symbolically. That's my reading of it. But let's go through the whole thing. Let's go back to the beginning of this story. What is there any special reference to the idea of the order? Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon. So Tosfos says that Rabbi Akiva was more distinguished than Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. In fact, Rabbi Akiva was the most distinguished of all because the halachas like Rabbi Akiva in all places. But nevertheless, they mentioned Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah before him because he had better lineage. And Tosfos also says that even though Rabbi Akiva was the student of Rabbi Tarfon, nevertheless, they mention Rabbi Tarfon afterwards, and doesn't say why. So, why was Rabbi Eliezer in Benei Brak? This is a big problem because we learned this in our Daf Yomi in Sanhedrin that Rabbi Eliezer was in Lud. And Rabbi Eliezer himself said in the Gemara in Sukkah, this is something, it's a very powerful statement. He says, Mishabech ani asatzlanim she'enam yotzim mibatem b'regel. He says, I praise those who stay in their homes on the festival. Well, if that's the case, how was Rabbi Eliezer not in Lud? He said, you shouldn't go. Don't go to your Rebbe's house for Yom. Stay with your family. Be a good husband. Then how come here, Kobe, I saved you a seat right next to me. I saved you a seat, Moshe, right next to Kobe. Okay. How is it possible that, by the way, we have such a geschmack crowd in person and on the Zoom. It's like we have almost 2 minyanim. So Baruch Hashem, give him a Haggadah, give us a Haggadah. We're discussing the incident of Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon. And the question that we're asking that they all gathered in Benei Brak to tell the story. But the basic here, Kobe. But the basic question is Rabbi Eliezer was from Lud, and he himself said that you should not. He praised those who didn't leave their homes on Yontif. They didn't go to their Rebbe. So what was he doing there? So we have a lot of answers to this question. So one answer is that Pesach is different. Pesach, you're supposed to gather outside your immediate circle of family to tell the story of the Exodus. And we know that there's another reference that that Rabbi Gamliel was once on a ship on Erev Pesach, and he remembered that he had chametz, and so he sold it. So that's another answer. Another answer is that this is brought down in the Haggadah of the Chachmei Yerushalayim, that the mitzvah of the Exodus, you need to fulfill, even though all the other holidays, he said, stay in your home, but the mitzvah of the Exodus, you need to fulfill in as large a group as possible in order to publicize the miracle. And so since Rabbi Eliezer didn't have a lot of people in his place, he said, I'm going to go to Benei Brak. So this is the source of the idea of having a large Seder. Right? My family feels like we fulfilled that mitzvah enough years. So we're done with that because we used to do these communal Seders. Anybody here ever go to one? Yeah, we used to have like hundreds of people at them. It was a big tumult. There was a lot of Leibadik, but now it's somebody else's turn to do it. Okay, so now, okay, what is Benei Brak? So what was Benei Brak? So what do you think it is? Everybody reads the Seder, and what do we assume? It was a place called Benei Brak. That's where they were. But maybe there's another way to do it. But what's another way to interpret this phrase? What's another way to interpret this phrase? That Benei Brak can also be the children of Barak, the children of a man named Barak. So this goes back to what I was saying before. Okay, you might not like this, but I think that this is the pshat. You have to read this on a deep level. Remember, I said it's the time of the sunrise, that we're in darkness. The whole purpose of the Pesach story is to bring redemption. Where else do we see Barak? Where do we see Barak? What was the very first word? Nace, you're spending your time in the Temple Mount this year, like by Harabayit. He's in yeshiva overlooking it. What's the very first word that's said in the morning by the temple? The very first word.
The Muslims have their little.
No, I'm saying the Jews. What's the very first word the Jews say? The very first word. Rabbi Yosef, remember? Hold on, let me put in mind. Rabbi Yosef can share with us because he's the scholar. The very first word every day. The very first word is Barkai. 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 The morning sun has been spotted. So Benei Barak can mean the children of Barkai, the children of the morning sun, meaning to say these were the children who believed in the redemption, who redeemed in the redemption. These were the ones who were saying, stop having this lachrymose. They used to say there was a great professor of Jewish history from Columbia named Salo Baron. Ever hear of him? Salo Baron. He is just a tremendous scholar. He wrote like a 15-volume work. But anyway, he coined the phrase, the lachrymose approach to Jewish history, saying that Judaism, you know what lachrymose means? Tearful. Yeah.
History is a veil of tears.
That approach to Jewish history, just going over the tragedies, which obviously they're not going to talk about, Yankel sat down and had a Leiba Dik Shabbos meal. I mean, that's not history. History is when the Cossacks came and killed him. So they're only going to focus on that one incident. But anyway, these people were saying, my theory is that they were saying that they were having the Seder with people who were pushing them to recognize the Mashiach, to recognize that the redemptive moment has arrived. So it's possible that Hayu Mesubin B'Benei Brak doesn't mean that they were sitting in the town called Benei Brak. They were sitting with the children who were Barkais, who were saying, no, we're done with the lachrymose conception. This is about the redemption. The redemption is here. Let's follow Bar Kokhba. The Rambam says that Rabbi Akiva followed Bar Kokhba holding his arms, holding his weapons. That's how much he believed. So that Bar Kokhba represented the redemption of the Jewish people and the rebuilding of the temple. Rabbi Akiva throughout Tanakh is known as the comforter and the one who believes and always looks at the optimistic approach.
He was wrong.
Why do you say he was wrong?
The route trying to rebel against the Romans wasn't the best thing to do.
But when he died, he was positive.
Yeah, but I would say Rabbi Akiva I would say, Jeff, first of all, you're man, I admire so much that I don't even want to ever criticize or disagree with you. You've forgotten more about life than I know. But I would say Rabbi Akiva defeated the Romans. His ideas we're talking about today. Anybody ever give you an hour-long shir on something Hadrian said? Nobody cares one thing about what Hadrian said. Rabbi Akiva's values, his teachings, he lives on and grows stronger and stronger and stronger. Do you know how many schools there are that are called Akiva, Benei Akiva, Rabbi Akiva? The whole Jewish world is probably the most common name. So how many schools have you ever been to called the children of Hadrian? Zero. Hadrian is a bum, a nothing. Rabbi Akiva lives on.
I sound like the McGill. And they have a whole course on Adrian.
They have a course on it.
Listen, because he was such a great general and did so many good things, and I had long discussions with him,
Yeah,
but this is not a Jewish school.
okay.
But there's a whole course if you want to learn what a great,
Uh,
and there's a great.
Okay.
Roman.
Anyway, Shekoyach. So another approach is brought by the Kilos Yaakov, the Stipler, that he says, B'derech Drush, he says, what's the reason that they mentioned that the place where they reclined was in Benei Brak? Because we have a question. That the time, there's an opinion that Rebbe Lezer ben Azariah is actually the one, and Rebbe Lezer, they say you're only supposed to talk about the Exodus until midnight. So why were they talking all night long? That's a big question, right? The Gemara says that they said the mitzvah is until midnight. So why are they going all night long? So the reason is because this is a beautiful explanation. Where were they? In Benei Brak. Who lived there? Rabbi Akiva. So they said, oh, we're eating with you. So therefore, we have to adopt the stringencies of the place we arrived to. And since you're speaking all night, therefore, we also have to go all night. And so that's the explanation. That's a powerful idea. Another explanation is from the Rama Padua. He says the reason why they mentioned it, okay. Anyway, the point is that they went to give Rabbi Akiva honor. But finally, one last answer is fundamental reason. I think the Chasam Sofer says the best reason goes along the lines of what I was saying. Why do they have to mention Benei Brak, even if you reject my explanation? But maybe that's why how Benei Brak got its name. But the reason why it tells us this is because wants to emphasize where it was not. The incident did not take place in Yerushalayim, did not take place in Jerusalem during the time when the temple was standing. It did not take place in Beitar because it did not take place in Yavneh. So they were in exile in Benei Brak. They were out of their locus of power, and yet they still believed in the redemption. They didn't say, we're done with this. They didn't run away. They didn't run away to Rome. They didn't become Romans. Their temple was just destroyed. They were severely defeated. They weren't in the location they dreamed of, but they said, we're going to make the best of it. We're going to make the best of it. A tremendous geschmack explanation of the Chasam Sofer. Now, so what were they talking about all night long? We don't have their chidushim that they were saying. What were they saying all night long? So that's all interesting thing. Can you imagine their conversation? We have everything else. Why don't we have their conversation? So that's something I was always wondering about.
Planning a rebellion.
It could be that they were planning it. They were keeping it a secret.
To encourage us to come.
It could be.
We don't want Putin to know that. Trump.
Yeah, that could be. The Maharil says that if you take the first letters of each of their names, you have the numerical value of 91, which is the Yud K Vav K and Ad Nai. And that hints to the fact that they were engaging in the deepest mysticism. The deepest mysticism. Okay. Next phrase. Why does it say, I am Misaper b'Yetzias Mitzrayim kol oso halayla? The word oso is a strange word there. They were talking about the Exodus. Kol halayla. Why does it have to say oto halayla? It's as though something else happened that night. Something else we don't know about happened that night. What else happened? What was going on? Because anybody hear an answer to this question? Anybody? Anybody ever talk about this question before? So some say that they were talking about all the miracles that happened on that specific night. That specific night, that night of the Exodus. The night of the Exodus. Okay. So now we have another question. This is the question I raised before, which is, why did they stop to recite the Shema? Why did they stop to recite the Shema? Why didn't they keep going? So my explanation is that they stopped to recite the Shema because it was symbolic, that they said, okay, now the dawn has arisen, and now it's time for the redemption. But the Rishonim said a different explanation. The Rishonim, here, join us. We have Haggadahs for you, Elon and Yoav. Please join us. Hello, my friends. Hello, my dear friends. That the Rishonim give a different explanation. That because the mitzvah of Kriya Shema is passing, and the mitzvah of the redemption is actually the mitzvah of talking about the Exodus is actually ongoing, meaning to say, of course they should stop, because the mitzvah of the Exodus never ends. The mitzvah of talking about the Exodus never ends. Why do we have to say that the mitzvah of talking about the Exodus never ends? Because the Exodus, the idea of the Exodus is the core message of Judaism. The core message of the Torah is the Exodus. It will never stop. Okay, let me just stop for a second. What's the core message of the Exodus? I think that everybody should be asking this question on Seder night. What's the core message? What lesson are we supposed to learn from the Exodus story? I mean, you really have, like, if you think about it, you have 1 minute to tell people this. If you're at a Seder, which is Leibadik, a lot of people, not everybody wants to have a long Seder, a long, Farbrengen, like we're doing now, a beautiful Geschmack discussion. Not everybody wants to have that. Some people just want to get to their brisket and their chocolate cake and their... So what is the purpose of the Exodus story? What's the purpose of the Exodus story? Why are we telling this story? What would you say? If you have one sentence to say, what would be the purpose? Somebody comes to your Seder and says, tell me, why are we doing this? What would be your answer, Nace?
Can I just mention another point I was thinking about?
Okay, sure.
Shema, I know there's two elements of Yetziat Mitzrayim. There's Sipur and like Zecher. So they're telling me about Sipur, but I think Shema fulfills the mitzvah of Zecher, right?
Oh, so it's another aspect of it. They were talking about telling the story, but Zecher is reminding us. That's a beautiful explanation, Nace. Beautiful. I like that a lot.
Beautiful.
Yeah, hold on. Jerry, yes. Jerry and then Elon. Jerry's on the Zoom and then Elon.
I heard a rabbi mention that Pesach is a holiday for children to teach, to raise questions, to foster raising questions in their minds about freedom and devotion to and thanking God for releasing us from Egypt.
Okay, I definitely think that that's an important element of it, but I wouldn't say it's the core lesson. It's definitely our responsibility to teach the children, but what is the fundamental lesson we're supposed to teach them? Now, you can have different answers to this. I have my answer, but let's hear from Dan and then Elon.
Hashem redeemed us once, and he will redeem us again.
I mean, I think something similar is that it's the basic idea, is the idea of redemption. That no matter where we are in life, no matter where we are, we have the possibility of redemption. That we can make the world better. We believe is in the belief that we can make the world better, that the world will be redeemed, that the world, if it feels like things are bad through illness, through politics, through whatever personal setbacks we're facing, it's the belief and the reinforcement of the belief that no matter how down we are, we can get better, and God will help us get better. That to me is a lesson that's eternal. That's eternal, and we have to internalize it, because the minute we stop believing in the possibility of getting better, the minute we give up on life. You can't live if you don't believe in a better. You can't live if you're cynical. Well, you can, but nobody wants to be around you. It's not healthy. It's not helpful. It's a terrible message to the world. But the Pesach is that we believe. So, of course, the Christians had to beat us. They said that even when you die, he's still the Messiah never gets defeated. But I mean, we suffered a setback with Bar Kokhba and other messiahs, but we believe that the Messiah will be living. Eli, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say, like when you said, but also it's kind of just like our greatest moment as a nation to have. It's like the time where we were founded as a nation. Like we did like this big thing. God really like fully revealed Himself to us. We got the Torah, and maybe it's also like kind of like a reminiscing type of.
To remind ourselves where we came from, and with gratitude. I definitely think that that's a key element of it. That's also a huge part of it, and it's the idea of gratitude. I think that's also a fundamental lesson. But I mean, if you ask me, what's the fundamental, even more core value message? I think it's about redemption. But redemption comes through gratitude, through recognizing that it's not about us. If we recognize the world is not about us, we can achieve we can believe in a better future no matter what situation we're in. Very nice. Okay, let us daven mincha at this time. A big shkoyach to everybody as we get ready for Pesach. Okay, we're going.